wages of sin is death, but the wounds of evil are shame. Shame sources fear. Fear funnels deceit. Deceit develops the devil. The devil desires disconnection. Disconnection brings separation. Separation scalpels relation, where two are not relationed, sanctified as one, made so in marriage, the highest and hardest sacrament, because God gifts life. Sources all, in sin or sacrament, born or yet, is sacred. There are no illegitimate children, only illegitimate parents. All you mama's boys and father failures, continuing Adam's curse, with dogs instead of descendants. Be like Foreman, invincible in ring or home. Grow up, marry up, dad up, claim 'em and name 'em. Bible her before they slave your wife. Scripture them before they sacrifice your kids. Hit the range, not the green. The bag, not the court. Fast, lift, learn to hit and be hit and like it. Be a feared father, not a fun friend. A revered, respected rampart. The sure shelter they seek in society's storm. Father ferociously, not familiarly. Protectors aren't popular. Leading is lonely. Wives will pout, kids huff and puff, so long as they grow up. But someday, just maybe, when they parent, they'll thank you. Rape born, orphan adopted, blessed bastard, ex-soldier, special agent spy, tyrant targeted, slave state slandered, turned whistleblower, warrior. Sabotage sharpened, correction crucibled, redemption repurposed, maker missioned. As chaplain, leader, teacher, and truth teller, now America's intelligence officer. Following God, leading my family, and any that choose to join our Trail of Tears walk to faith and freedom. Welcome. I'm Jeff Prather, and this is the Prather Point. Hey, everybody. This is a recorded show. Sorry about that. I'm recording this actually on Monday because I am traveling on Wednesday, and I am teaching and visiting on Thursday. So no comments today, unfortunately, but very important show. What we're going to cover is breaking the CIA admits to MK ultraing Americans. The US JP Morgan is mimicking Ukraine biometrics. China exports and accelerates unrestricted warfare, the unrestricted warfare doctrine. And the incestuous intelligence agencies are worse than Watergate. And we'll have former Marine and Galileo CEO and Satphone executive Brett Miller guesting with us shortly. So what I really want to get into, I'm on the board of Targeted Justice. We had a meeting the other day, and Dr. Juliet Engel was saying how she posted the last year in December, the CIA admitting MK Ultra and publishing all these old documents going back into the 50s. And so this was published in December 23rd, 2024. But of course, we've seen a lot of this, but we haven't seen this in this kind of detail. And so, and the way they phrase it is, of course, to take themselves off the hook. Today, the national security, and of course, December 23rd, who's looking at stuff on December 23rd? Because that's in Christmas 2024. The National Security Archive and ProQuest celebrates the publication of new scholarly documents marking the shocking secret history of the CIA's mind control research, the CIA and the behavioral sciences, mind control, drug experience, and MK Ultra, with 1,200 essential records under the names that included MK Ultra, Bluebird, and Artichoke. The CIA conducted terrifying experiments using drugs, hypnosis, isolation, sensory deprivation, and other extreme techniques on human beings. Extreme techniques being euphemism for torture. Now, of course, when I was going to the FBI Academy in 1990, I walked right downstairs to the behavioral science unit. If you watch the movie with Jodie Foster, Silence of the Lambs, she's actually running an FBI course, and she's actually in the hamster cage, we call it, because it's connecting tunnels. But of course, you don't see anything coming out of behavioral science against all the tranny shooters or anything, because they are in on it. It's very clear that they are in on it. But where does that come from? Well, it comes from 50 years of MK Ultra research. It began with Seymour Hersh's probes that brought MK Ultra abuses to light. And the new collection also comes 70 years since the U.S. pharmaceutical giant Eli Lilly first developed a process to streamline the manufacturing of LSD in 1954, becoming the CIA's chief supplier of the newly discovered psychoactive chemical central to many of the agency's behavioral control efforts. So again, we've seen the intelligence agencies really involved in drugs for a long time. Of course, me becoming a whistleblower, and then against DEA's deal with the Sinaloa cartel to run drugs north in exchange for the fast and furious guns going south, and then finding out that the CIA had a guy there when they were torturing and murdering our agent Kiki Camarena. But basically, there was a director-approved plan in 1950 for the establishment of interrogation teams that would utilize polygraph, drugs, hypnotism to attain the greatest results of interrogation techniques. And then in 51, a memo that captures the meeting between CIA and foreign intelligence officials about mind control research. And a 52 entry from the daily calendar of George White, a federal narcotics agent. So, my old agency, DEA, who ran a safe house where CIA tested drugs like LSD and performed other experiments on unwitting Americans. There's a Netflix show about this. I was kind of watching it. I was like, well, this is too ridiculous because they're just torturing people, but looks like it's actually very accurate. And a 1952 report on the successful use of artichoke interrogation methods that combine the use of narcosis and hypnosis to induce regression and later amnesia on Russian agents suspected of being doubled, which is double agents, that they were coming in out of the cold, but they were really working for Russia. So they're trying to determine that. That's always a counterintelligence conundrum. In a 1956 memo in which MK Ultra chief Sidney Gottlieb signs off on a project that would evaluate the effects of large doses of LSD-25 in normal human volunteers on federal prisoners in Atlanta. Now, all these documents are on my patreon.com / Jeffrey Prather at the Psy Warrior $15 a month level if you want to see them. 1963 report from the CIA's Inspector General, which led CIA leadership to re-examine the use of unwitting Americans in their covert drug testing program. And a 1983 deposition of MK Ultra chief Sidney Gottlieb in a civil case brought by Velma Orlikow, a victim of CIA-sponsored projects conducted by Dr. Ewan Cameron at the Allen Memorial Institute in Montreal. So it's not even just in America, it's in Canada too. So Richard Helms and longtime MK Ultra chief Sidney Gottlieb destroyed most of the original project records in 1973. It's a story about secrecy, perhaps the most infamous cover-up of the agency's history. It's also a history marked by near total impunity at the institutional and individual levels for countless abuses committed across the decades. And why this comes up is because this is part of the Targeted Justice Board that is so important, because what Targeted Justice is claiming, and I'll get Dr. Juliet Engel on here. She couldn't come on today, but I will get her on later in the month, is making the allegation that the government is targeting unwitting American citizens. And so how you make that allegation is, well, they've done it before. Well, how have they done it before? Well, here they did it. MK Ultra, Artichoke. This is well, how do you know they did it? Because they are admitting they did it. That's why this is so important. And so they used ordinary medical treatments inside prison hospitals, addiction clinics, juvenile detention facilities, and in many cases led by top figures in the field of behavioral sciences. So the bulk of these records were drawn from, compiled by John Marks, the former State Department official who filed the first Freedom of Information Act request on the subject, and whose 1979 book, The Search for the Manchurian Candidate, the CIA and Mind Control, The Secret History of the Behavioral Sciences, came out. And that remains the single most important source of this episode. Marks later donated his FOIA documents and other research papers to the National Security Archive. Many redactions in the documents have been effectively removed with the passage of time, as official investigations, civil depositions, and detailed histories have shed significant light on some of these episodes. In many cases, copies of declassified reports donated by Marks to the National Security Archive bear his handwritten annotations. So the legacy of MK Ultra goes far beyond the various sub-projects described in these documents that were largely shut down by the mid-70s. No, that's a lie. They weren't shut down. Rarely do government projects get shut down. They just get transferred over because they want to keep funding them. But as author Stephen Kinzer points out, the CIA's behavioral control research programs contributed decisively to the development of techniques that Americans and their allies used at detention centers in Vietnam, Latin America, Afghanistan, Iraq, Guantanamo Bay, and secret prisons around the world. But many MKUltra projects were conducted in hospitals, laboratories, or other institutional settings, as well as clandestine CIA safe houses, not staffed by doctors or clinicians, but by hard-nosed federal narcotics agents like George Hunter White. So, of course, that is negligence to do that. And also, White adopted the persona of a bohemian artist named Morgan Hall to lure unsuspecting victims to his pad, where he and CIA collaborators secretly experimented on them and recorded their behavior. So now when you see congressmen going overseas or going on a junket and they get drugged and then secretly recorded, or just seduced, this is the intelligence agencies doing that. An OSS veteran who had worked on the truth drug development for the Army in World War II, White surreptitiously dosed many of his victims with LSD, without their knowledge, a drug that the CIA had in abundance thanks to Eli Lilly. So again, we see the incestuous relationship between narcotics enforcement agents, between the big pharmacia, and he produced his drugs in tonnage quantities. And a CIA psychologist, John Kittinger, was also involved in this. Of particular interest is the mysterious 1953 death of Frank Olson, an Army chemist and aerosols specialist for the Special Operations Division of the Army's Chemical Corps, the CIA's military partner in behavioral research, because they don't have the facilities to do that. So what do? They chop to the Army. Should not be that way. The intelligence community should chop to the military because it's intelligence support. It's combat arms support. I'm not a combat arms officer. I'm a combat arms support officer, intelligence for the military. But that's not what we have in America. We have military supporting intelligence in all of this. And Olson's death from a 10-story fall in New York City came 10 days after Gottlieb and staff spiked his cocktail with LSD during a CIA SOD work retreat at Deep Creek Lake, Maryland. So he was suicided. At the center of all of this was Sidney Gottlieb, the head of technical services staff. That's the Q Shop or Toys R Us. That's where you see all the cool toys made. Gottlieb was the CIA's chief poison maker. And although MKUltra was approved at the highest levels, it operated with virtually no oversight. And the MK budget was exempted from the normal CIA financial controls, with little accountability, boundless researchers, and the backing of CIA covert chief of operations Richard Helms. And they did all these bizarre experiments on folks. So by the time Gottlieb arrived at CIA in 1952, Project Bluebird explored the possibility of mind control by an individual by application of special interrogation techniques. Why this is so important is because this was the test that is now being run against Americans in general through iPhones, through iPads, through computers. It was under Artichoke that the agency first began to more systemically recruit the top researchers and court the most prestigious institutions. Boston Psychopathic Hospital, Dr. Robert Hyde was in on the Sandoz Laboratory in Switzerland. Shortly before Alan Dulles became the director of CIA in 1953, he authorized MKUltra, expanding the agency's behavior control research and refocused it on the development of a capability in the covert use of biological and chemical materials. So biological and chemical materials, that's COVID. That's COVID-19. That's the pandemic. That is all of the bioweapons masking as vaccines. So I want you to see the history of this and then how they are doing MKUltra and Artichoke and Bluebird at scale now. At scale means of 100 times. So many other MKUltra sub-projects were established through the grants. One of these was the Tichter Fund for Medical Research, professor at pathology at Georgetown University. Of course, Ted Kaczynski was the kid at Harvard. They created the Unabomber, and then they went after the poor security guard because that was their script. Another prominent MK cutout was the Human Ecology Society, Ecology, run by Cornell Medical Center neurologist Dr. Harold Wolff, who wrote an early study of communist brainwashing techniques for Alan Dulles. Among the most extreme MK Ultra projects funded through the Wolff's Group were the infamous depatterning programs conducted by Dr. Ewan Cameron at the Allen Memorial Institute, a psychiatric hospital at McGill University in Montreal, Canada. So you take, mentally ill people who are expecting treatment, and they are being experimented on like Frankenstein. And while some medical professionals engaged by the CIA apparently struggle with the ethical issues raised by conducting harmful tests on unwitting human subjects, others were eager to participate in a program, which, according to one 1953 memo, says no area of the human mind is to be left unexplored. Just as CIA psychologists later oversaw the torture of prisoners at Guantanamo Bay, black sites, many of the doctors and clinicians recruited by MK Ultras were leaders in their field. So this is my problem with the Pedo Joe administration, where you've got ICE and Border Patrol and HSI trafficking children. They are pedophiles. They did it, and now all of a sudden they're not doing it anymore. But they did it. They have not repented it. They have not been held to account. They have not confessed it. There should be some kind of blanket immunity or something after they confess. That's what happened with the South after they lost the Civil War. But we don't see any of that happening, and we don't see any institutional integrity, again, because we don't have national ethics. Our national ethics being based upon our morals based on the Mosaic 10 Commandments, the 2 Christic Commandments, the 2 Autochthonous Indigenous Commandments, as I've talked about many times. But I want to get my guest in here to comment on that. Brett Miller is a former Marine Corps veteran, and he is also the CEO of Galileo.com. Galileo is the SAT texting service that I am honored to be a plank holder on. So if your comms go down, or if you can't afford a SAT phone, you can find out what's really going on through Galileo. And he's a frequent guest. So Brett, welcome back. Glad to have you.
It's good to see you again, sir. Thanks for having me back. Yeah, it's I worked in Los Angeles for a while, and just listening to what you were talking about here in the green room back here was it reminded me of all the movies like Long Kiss Goodnight, The Actual Manchurian Candidate, Conspiracy Theory with Mel Gibson is a great one, and then the MK Ultra movie with that Jesse Eisenberg and the girl from Twilight, where he's MK Ultra, and then it turns out I think she's his like handler, and like they're not even like dating for real or something. So I mean, everything that you've been saying is, they've been showing us on TV for years. But yeah.
Yeah, by the time it gets to TV, it is very institutionalized. But they're also, I think that that's a great point, because when it comes to TV, that's MK Ultra at scale.
Yeah.
And they're saying, we're doing it to you, and here's a show about it.
I mean, normalizing it, right? I mean, that's kind of what they say, and now we can see, everyone's talking about like it's all apocalyptic or zombie apocalypse or end of the world kind of thing. But yeah, the MK Ultra thing was for many years, it was hush hush, and then kind of popped out. And then, now you can see where, the whole blonding of the hair in Hollywood, that's just like where my frame of reference from the MK Ultra comes from. I've heard of the experiments where the CIA was drugging Johns in some of the brothels and stuff, and watching them just to see what happens and see what they do. But yeah, in Hollywood, you could see it kind of they always talked about when the celebrity blondes their hair, bleaches their hair, from that point on, they would call them a clone. But I also kind of wondered if it was more of an MK Ultra thing, because I mean, look what happened to many of them, like the Britney Spears, and these pop icons, and the Kanyes, and the people that have they were going down a direct path, and then something snapped and they divided, and now they're like at conflict with their self, which you know, when you watch the movies like Conspiracy Theory with Mel Gibson, that's what happens. He was like brainwashed into a thing, sent out as a hitman, and then he got triggered and he snapped. And then, you know, he's starting to recite and recall the things that he did when he was under, you know, this MK Ultra hypnosis or whatever.
Well,
that, you know.
explain the blonde thing to me. I don't know about that.
Yeah, well, they say many of the celebrities, you know, they'll start off young, Disney type celebrities, you know, or musicians, and then at some point, they all bleach their hair blonde, and then from that point forward, they're different. They're not the same. They're more in line or towing the line, and they've kind of lost. It happened, you know, Kanye, Justin Timberlake, Eminem, you know, all the girls, Lindsay Lohan's, and all the ones that like gone crazy. You know, the people that have they were doing a thing, and then they have this moment where they have bleach blonde hair, and it's almost like a transition that takes place. But that's, you know, that's conspiracy theory Hollywood stuff. But you can go back and look, and many of those stars, they're different after the fact, bizarrely.
Wow.
But I wanted to say, even Jim Morrison's father was a high-ranking general and started one of the first Air Force production. One of the first production studios in Hollywood was Laurel Canyon, which is an Air Force base, and and Jim Morrison's father was like the general of that. So basically, one of the guys in the CIA. So they say, and then here's Jim Morrison, who, you know, comes out as this anti-establishment, don't go to work, drink a lot of alcohol, grow your hair out, like people are strange and weird, and you don't have to conform, man. Like, you don't have to be successful. We can just kind of do it. And many people say that, you know, they attribute kind of what happened to the culture at that time as being a brainwashing on a large scale through music and through Jim Morrison, and that disassociation with society and what makes a positive, productive society. But
well, no, that's very true, because the LSD, what I learned there or remembered there was that the CIA is responsible for mainstreaming and producing LSD. And of course, then it would be for production. They didn't really go into that, but you know, that's what we saw in my whistleblowing with the Contras, with cocaine, you know, and cash and Contras as well. Yeah. So, and then I just see the narcotics guy tied in there, the former OSS guy, narcotics guy. You know, it's just striking how the patterns just remain. But really, how psyoped everybody is, MK Ultra everybody is, because they don't really think it's for real.
I just recently watched that American Made movie with Tom Cruise, where it's about that true story, that pilot that like started, you mentioned Iran-Contra, and that was like a thing where they were like, you know, his handler kept coming up with these like crazy ideas, like, we got to fund these people, we got to train these people, we got to do this stuff, and then he's like, what if Iran funds them? And then it's like this genius idea of finding a bagman, finding someone to blame, finding a boogeyman.
But even that movie doesn't show that what was his name? The character Cruz played. And I can't think of his name right now.
I got it over there, but yeah.
He was former Special Forces.
Okay.
He had served in Army Special Forces. You know, and Army Special Forces often get chopped to CIA because it looks like he's a civilian and he's
that's how they portray it. He's just a pilot who's bored with his life.
Pilot. No, right? No, it's not at all that.
And they even say on the title, it's based on a true lie. And I just laughed at that, because I was like, of course, like, if they want to tell you right to your face, like, you are being lied to, this is total BS, but you're gonna buy it and you're gonna believe it, and that's just how it's gonna go. So it is. And you mentioned LSD. You know, I'm a friend with Michael Jans, and he is very much, you know, against marijuana, medicinally, recreationally, in any way. Also alcohol, obviously, you know, and I think video games falls into that category too. I think all of those.
Mike's a friend of mine. In fact, I'm the one who introduced him to Mike Adams, and
wow,
and you could also include, you know, rock music in that as well.
Oh, especially now when you like every music video is like a demonic ritual where they're all in red, they're all demons, they're all like dripped in black ooze.
All those pastors back in the 60s that were like, it's demonic. You were right.
You were right. You were right. And I heard like Led Zeppelin. I've heard, you play the music backwards. You can actually do that. Stairway to Heaven. Your stairway lies in the whispering wind. When you play that backward, it's like everything will die. Satan is God. Like it's super dark and evil. And I was doing a video, interestingly enough, and I think you should try this, and I implore your audience to try it too on their own. But if you take Obama's "Yes, We Can" and you play it backwards, it says "Thank you, Satan." I swear. It's in a video. I've done it. I did it on my own. "Yes, we can." Play it backwards. So everyone out there chanting these things and doing these things, and like you said, singing the songs. Yeah, they're all spells. Yeah.
Wow.
Is what it seems like from, my little conspiracy corner.
Well, that also ties into how in the U.S., JP Morgan is mimicking Ukrainian biometrics. And so JP Morgan is now requiring biometrics for their employees in the States. And they're rolling out a special smartphone app that doubles as a digital ID badge. But where it was voluntary, it's now, I guess, going to be mandatory. And they say this is following a series of high-profile crimes, including the December 2024 killing of the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, as a justification for protecting employees. I don't see how that protects any employees at all. Just sounds like a complete excuse.
It's all for your protection. Everything is for your protection. They love you so much.
Yeah. But they're also saying this could be legally problematic because once you're in the system, then they have access to your biometrics regardless. And JP Morgan's London offices are already using hand geometry system to control access. But the critics warn that the decision could normalize coercive data collection across white-collar workspace. Biometric identifiers are immutable. Once compromised, they cannot be replaced. And labor rights attorneys say that even if employees technically consent, the choice is illusory when access to one's job depends upon enrollment. So to me, this looks, as soon as I saw this, I was thinking about Ukraine, because Ukraine is the global cabal's biolab. Not just Obama and Lugar setting up biolabs, but Ukraine itself is the first digital state. It's the global cabal's ideal state that they're trying to make the United States into. And just before this happened with JP Morgan, October 1st in Ukraine, they deployed biometrics on the border, spearheaded by the Ministry of Internal Affairs. I think that's the same ministry that shuts down the Catholic churches and jails the Orthodox Catholic churches and the Orthodox priests and stops the elections. They're doing a national biometric verification identification system, an automatic fingerprint system. And they're saying that the Transnational Threats Department of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, which is part of the European Union, is conducting 4 Ukrainian forensic documents experiments in cryptography. So this, to me, as they're rolling this out in Europe, looks to me like they're trying to roll this out. So this looks like the beginning of the universal banking system, and the mark. What say you about that?
Don't take the mark. I tell to everybody all the time, no matter what, don't take the chip. Yeah, it's crazy. You can see the social credit score system already implemented in China. There's just reports the other day I was watching about how all these young Chinese are, it's hard to survive, right? It's hard to make a living. It's hard to stand up and stand yourself up when you're a younger person, especially if you don't have a strong family support system, and how a lot of them are now left homeless because they're not making the social credit score system. They're not making the system. So, any kind of, Ukraine has been a cesspool. You know, we had Rangers. I had Ranger buddies training them Switchblade drones back in 2014. You know, it's like obviously Ukraine. You know, they had a vote. Even I mean, it's just history. You know, they had their vote, and then we decided we didn't like that guy, so the U.S. went over there and flipped it and put Zelensky in.
Do you know the average age right now of conscription in Ukraine?
No, but I did see one that was like a bus full of looked like grandfathers.
It's 40. It's 40 years old.
40. Wow.
Because the meat grinder has killed everybody else off, and they're
it's like
away.
Millions of people. Millions of people have died in this, and the footage is just atrocious. I mean, it just thermal drones just watching guys get shredded by grenades, and the sound through the forest, and GoPros of dudes getting shot, and like the one video of the two guys in a knife fight. It's like a video of
that was amazing. It started with drones, it went to rifles, then it went to pistols, then knives, and hand-to-hand.
And at the end, the guy's like, "You've bested me. You're a better boy." He's like, kissing. I was like, this is disturbing on all kinds of levels. And I
actually showed that to my handgun martial arts students and studied that because I teach online monthly, and never before in history has anything like that ever been available.
I mean, those stories, you hear about those stories in a Sean Ryan interview, or like who's the guy that did those Civil War documentaries, but in like some Vietnam documentary, you'll see like a guy crying about the situation and talking about having to fix bayonets. And he got a World War II bayonet right there, but fix bayonets, like, but to watch it on video and like to see, like you said, that it's like the escalation of force in reverse. Like as you just run out and run out and run out, and you're just down to bare hands. I mean, that's the kind of, but anyway, like you said, like, and then the videos of guys getting snatched off the street, and mothers screaming and kids screaming as cars are driving away from like the guys in all black that are coming to snatch these dudes.
And also where they're tying them up to light poles and then pulling their pants down and painting their faces green. And somehow that doesn't make Newsmax or Fox.
Right. And, then you got Lindsey Graham flying over there and coming back after spending a weekend, charging us $1 million, charging the taxpayer $1 million for a weekend stay in Ukraine. I mean, and the money laundering, no one's talking. I mean, what happened to it was billions of dollars that we sent over there. And then a Ukrainian official sent back a document showing U.S. congressmen and how much they took of that percentage, their cut basically. And nothing has come of it. We just continued. And then Trump says, I'm going to stop it on day one. And it's day 7 months. I don't know. That's not stopped. It's escalating more. It's just all kinds of wrong, it seems. But yeah, I mean, I remember Putin was saying back when COVID was kicking, when it first started, Putin was the first one that accused the United States of having bioweapons labs in Ukraine. He went on that national news. It was translated. I saved it, and then it was deleted off the internet like the next day.
No, and then they went to the ICC, and they specifically named Obama. And
and then there's that picture of there's a picture of Obama and Fauci in that weapons lab with that lady, and they're just like pointing it out.
They had Russian PowerPoints on that. I remember posting them on my Patreon. And Putin set them up for Trump to knock down. And here's the evidence. Here's the package. Here's the ICC presentation. Now go for it and
do it.
And nothing.
And some would say that has something to do with a greater Israel project. I don't know. I'm not commanding it, but it is included in that map, I think, at least a portion of Ukraine. And some others also would say you should put a picture of Zelensky up and then put a picture of George Soros up, and that they're basically like one and the same guy. So he could actually be related to Soros, which would actually make a lot more sense than if he were some like second cousin of George Soros, because Soros was bragging about taking over Ukraine and parts of Russia years ago. I mean, he was openly saying he was going to call it like, what was he going to? He was going to name it after himself or something. Like he had a whole name.
They do call Ukraine the new Israel, and of course, Israel, Azov Battalion, the Tavor bullpup rifles, sent them to
Yeah.
the Nazis. But an interesting twist on this is this other item I want to talk about is China, how I think they're exporting and accelerating their unrestricted warfare doctrine. Because China used to present themselves as an independent arbiter of the Ukraine-Russian war, and now they are clearly supporting Russia. And while they are not supporting them with direct weapons, there's a lot of dual-use military and commercial components. No actual heavy weapons, artillery, but parts for drones. China is the major supplier to Russia of military surveillance and attack drones. Initially, the Mavic series. From 2022 to 2023, Chinese firms sold $12 million worth of drones and spare parts to Russia. Currently, the Russia V2U strike drones, which have artificial intelligence capabilities, are entirely made up of Chinese components and Chinese submarine technology. Produces jets and jet engines that are superior to their Russian counterparts. So the replacement parts will be made by China. Now, this article that I'm quoting, which is again up on my Patreon today, I'm scheduling it for then you can read it. And the guy says, moreover, as the Russian economy collapses, the increasing rely on China to prop it up. No, I do not believe the Russian economy is collapsing at all. I think it's getting roaring and getting stronger because it's built upon gold, gas, oil, rare earth. But I do think with Russia selling 8.7 million tons of crude oil since July 2025 of the year, and that the war in Ukraine has resulted in manpower shortages, Russia's industrial sector has hired 47,000 foreign workers, mainly Chinese. And China's exports to Russia reached a record 240 billion, with clothing being significant, even their essential down jackets and fur coats. So China is dominating the Russian market in cell phones, refrigerators, televisions, furniture, bedding. And to me, that sounds exactly like the unrestricted warfare doctrine that after the first Gulf War, they executed on America, because they watched us win the first Gulf War and said nobody can beat the Americans head on. And I think they're watching they're watching the Russians defeat the Ukrainians, and they're like, we cannot beat these guys head on, and so we're not going to. We're just going to shift our unrestricted warfare doctrine from America, which we've conquered. Now the tariff, I think Trump is waging the tariff war, but he's just starting to. But I think they've actually exported this doctrine. And I haven't really heard anybody else talk about that. So I wanted to get, what you think about that.
Yeah. Someone said to me many, many years ago, they said, Russia doesn't need anything from anybody.
That's right.
They got enough of everything.
That's right.
So it's like, all they need is people that want to buy their stuff, really. So, and, my enemy's enemies are my friends. And just like you said, Putin kind of set up Trump in a good way to try to take down some of these bad guys. China has they've always had this, 2045, 2050 plan, like this, it's global takeover. I mean, they've been talking about it forever.
Silk Road.
Yeah. So, it's like the United States from a position, like it's risk, right? So, I just kind of take a look at what they would be thinking. And right now, like the United States is not really a threat. We're disorganized. Our leadership is corrupt, corruptible, corrupted. He's watching, we all heard what President Trump said he was going to do, and we were all watching what he's doing now, and they're not the same.
Well, that's a really good point, because we're a world power for two reasons. Our economy, which has been destroyed because we're no longer the industrial powerhouse we were, and then our military might, and both are not what they were.
Right, and we're in debt to. I mean, a lot of it is China, right? We're printing money to sell our bonds to them. I mean, it's some crazy circle loop that we're in. 37 trillion in debt, $100,000 a second added to it. So as if I, as Putin, I would imagine, who seems very strategic and also cares about Russians. I mean, he banned all GMO farming. He's like,
and all transgender stuff,
and all transgender, and he supports religious beliefs. I mean, he talks about being Christian, and I'm not fanboying Putin here. I'm just saying, like, compared to other world leaders, he does seem to care about his people more than any other leader. So, he's like, all right, so who is the U.S. in debt to? Like, they're not going to come and attack me direct. We're kind of kicking their ass, second party through Ukraine. We're all tied up, giving all of our money and everything to this Gaza genocide, whatever's going on there. Maybe finally we'll get some peace after that, 600,000 people are missing now. But it's like, we're all kinds of, and so he looks at China, and China says, and we're trying to defend Taiwan at the same time, which is just, effort and futility from my point. It's like, if China really wanted it, they would just take it. Like, they're just toying with us at this point. So it seems like China is toying with us, and Vladimir Putin's like, well, you need our resources, because China does need the resources. So he's like, fine. Well, my enemies' enemies are my friends. If Trump is gonna, not. And then the first term, Trump was like meeting with Putin all the time. That was the big deal. They were like best friends. And he's like, I talk to Putin all the time. Like, and he hasn't talked to him one time. But Bibi Netanyahu's like in the White House. He's in Israel, back in the White House, back in Israel, it's like
pulling out his chair for him.
Pulling out his chair, rubbing him. I mean, he just gave some speech yesterday or something. I know this is airing later, but
Israel's going to give him their medal of something.
Medal of Honor. He's up there talking to like Miriam Adelson, who gave him $200 million. And he's like, I mean, it's just, there's no American flag, not even in sight. Every time Bibi comes, there's always a Israeli flag. And anytime any world leader comes, there's always the one representative and then the other flag, no U.S. flag. But anyway, my point is, like, I don't want to get tied up in that, but my point is, from Putin's perspective, we're a clown show right now, and we're being run by a clown. I mean, so he's partnering up with someone it's kind of like bullies, right? Like, they're going to team up because they're both going to fight us while we're collapsing under the weight of our own ego, because that's really all we have left anymore is ego, it would seem.
And between China and Russia, America is young. Russia and China have existed as empires and as countries, kingdoms, forever. America is very young, and Israel's even younger than that, baby. But, why I think that China is accelerating their unrestricted warfare doctrine. And so if anybody still doesn't know, everybody watches each other fight wars. And in the first Gulf War, we knew we had to win it quickly. So we won it quickly. The Chinese were watching. 2 Chinese Air Force colonels were watching. And we had to win it because we knew the media would turn against us, because that's what happened in Vietnam with Walter Cronkite. And the Tet Offensive was a great failure when it was a total success. We stopped them cold. Completely. We won every battle, lost the war. So we had to win fast. So we win so fast, the Chinese look at it and goes, hey, nobody can take the Americans head on, and we're not going to. We're going to take them every way except head on, except militarily. And that was the unrestricted warfare doctrine, which has now infiltrated and subjugated our economy, our institutions, our schools. And so that's what I think they are now doing to Russia as well. But I think they're also accelerating that because they have a new strategy for rare earth, and they control much of about 99% of the 85 to 90% of the world's rare earths, including 99% of the global dioprosium supply used in F-35 flight control systems. Well, that's a great jet, flies half the time. But the point is that this is the new oil of the AI war. Just as petroleum fueled the mechanized wars of the 20th century, diprosium and neodymium now fuel the algorithmic wars of the 21st century, the beating heart of AI. and precision guided munitions, stealth aircraft, satellite communications, submarine sonar arrays all depend upon rare earth allies. Semiconductors enable AI, AI enables weapons, and weapons depend upon rare earths. By throttling supply, China threatens not merely the chip output, but the nervous system of Western military power. Beijing leaders remember 2010 when a rare earth embargo against Japan backfired spectacularly. Tokyo diversified. And that may happen today as they try and control this. Rare earths are not just about smartphones and electric cars, they're the lifeblood of arsenals as well. So Beijing is export banning samarium, holmium, and erbium explicitly target these defense applications. And the message is if America curbs China's chip access, Beijing will retaliate at the raw material level. So this is, I think, the acceleration of unrestricted warfare through supply chains. This is something I think Putin understands very well. Now, the allied governments are linking their mining sectors through a Five Eyes critical mineral compact. But anytime I hear Five Eyes, that does not reassure me at all. But they're sharing geological data and financing. Private industry is re-engineering components to reduce heavy rare earth use. Universities are developing magnet alternatives like iron nitroid alloys. But China's rare earth crackdown is bold, punitive, and risky, and looks to me like they are accelerating the unrestricted warfare or modernizing it even, because it's been going successfully for 20 years. And yes, Trump has begun to fight it. The tariff war was the first ever and only effort against the unrestricted warfare. I give Trump credit for that. But, you know, what are your thoughts on all that? Now I'll shut up and let you.
No, that's great. I have several thoughts. Unrestricted warfare is just, to me, it's been going on for thousands of years, and the Chinese have been writing about it. It's called the art of war. And basically, you know, the siege by fire, and then what's the other one? Attack by stratagem. And attack by stratagem is where it's the art of taking over a nation state without expending your forces or getting your troops killed, basically without your army. And there's, you know, several factors, several ways to perform the art of stratagem. And one of them is to surround your enemy, cut off their supply chains, attack by fire, like I said. So burning area regions, burning supplies. It's flinging dead bodies over the walls to create a contagion or pandemic. I thought that one was funny. There's also to corrupt, get inside the governments and corrupt the governments, right? So you can then run and own their government. And then one of the last ones was to create civil unrest. And, you know, when you look at the art of war and then this, unrestricted warfare, I mean, they're very similar. And again, you know, when you think about the China-Russia partnership versus the United States, when you have Chinese buying large swaths of land next to military bases, farmland, whatever, and then you just consider the future being an AI, like you just talked about, and weaponry. So like all these precious metals, like you said, that's why silver, everyone's saying buy silver right now because it's used in all of these AIs and power stations. That's where my mind goes. Excuse me, that in order for China to continue leading or to run the AI race, they need the resources. And anyone can tell you now that these resources, you know, it takes like a small town, you know, to run these AI superstations. So it would seem like, you know, if you know that the United States has all the resources, a good way would be to watch it destabilize while systematically positioning yourself to then take over without really expending your army. Because if they just crash the economy, you don't have to invade the United States. The United States would eat itself. You know? That
goes along with the Chinese soldiers that are in here and the Chinese special operations soldiers.
Well, yeah. And then what you and I talked about, so 600,000 new Chinese students
Yep.
that Trump is approving to come into the country. Well, the Russian army is 600,000 people. So basically, China is sending the entire Russian army to school in the United States.
That's the 1,000 Talents program.
It's 60 divisions. 60 divisions of United States soldiers. If you just did between 40 and 60, because it depends on how many people per division, battalion, etc. Those numbers fluctuate, but generally it's roughly 50 to 60 divisions of people at 18 years old.
That's really that's interesting, because where you create. So I got all the analogies there. Contagion with the bodies in the old day. All the pharmacia. But I haven't seen the connect between Antifa and the protest in China. Haven't seen that one. But, certainly all the movies, it's always the Russians or the bad guy. When's the last time you saw a Chinese mafia movie, a Tong movie? Right. The Chinese were the bad guys. Nope.
I think it was like Rush Hour with Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker, and they were like fighting the Chinese guys in like Chinatown.
Was that like 20 years ago?
Oh, yeah, I know. It's been a long time.
Yeah, no, that's not allowed.
Right.
Just like it's always white Nazis. You don't see any black evil gangbangers anymore.
It's always white Christians out there killing everybody. Those darn Christians.
Yeah, those darn Christians.
Darn Christians. But yeah, I mean, all to your point, you bring up some great points. And, when you put all the pieces together, I mean, we can see that our enemies are aligning, and we are caught up in these quagmires at home and abroad, and we're in debt. And if anyone, and that was the other thing I want to say, China already said that if they called in the United States debt and we refused to pay, they would consider that an act of war. So they flat out said that, and that was only like a month ago. So, I mean, all signs are pointing to this being a problem. And yeah, if the economy just went haywire for 3 months, who would know if they invaded? Who would know unless you actually lived in that town?
Well, they have invaded.
Had a Red Dawn scenario where they're like parachuting in.
Again, I disagree with you. They have successfully executed the unrestricted warfare doctrine. There's no reason to go conventional military.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
I talked about that with Michael Yon for a long time. As well, because I think he was talking about that way back. I don't think he is now.
Well, if people are starving and they need food and there is no economy, and they'll beg you, like they'll beg for your help, when their families are starving to death and people are sick.
Well, China needs our produce, and that's what the regular Chinese troops are there to control the workers in the fields. The special operations troops, I think, are there to control the nodes, the trucks, trains, and containers at the port.
And they own both of the largest ports, right?
Yeah, they own both.
Both ports, San Pedro and New York, are owned by them. So, you would all you'd have to do is set up a small force to take over that area, and then you leave the only option to destroy it. And if it's destroyed, then it's no good to even the United States anymore. But it's kind of funny when you think about it, because that's the whole idea of the British in the Americas in the beginning, was that they sent their troops over here to take the supplies. And I was just listening to Steve Rinelli talk to Sean Ryan. He was talking about Daniel Boone and how Daniel Boone was a poacher against the king's deer, because the king said all the deer here also belonged to the king. So he wasn't actually a hunter prior to him coming to the United States, because no one could hunt in England because the king owned everything. So it's kind of like the Chinese are now sending their troops here to secure the resources for their troops here, but also for their nation state. So everyone's positioning to take over America, except American governments, which should be positioning to hold America together, but they all seem distracted. But that's what I'll just bring a little satellite phone store plug here. I mean, that's the whole thing we talk about every day, all day long, is like, what happens if you are left alone? What happens? Like, is anyone coming to save you? And even with the tariffs, Trump just boasted billions in tariff money coming into the United States. Well, did any single American see any of that? Has it gone anywhere, or did it just get usurped by the government and stolen again? So we're paying for that because the prices are going up and the people have to pay for the offset, and a couple companies have been closed down because of these tariffs. I know one trucking company personally for 20 years is my buddy who's had to shut down because of the tariffs. He couldn't compete with the large companies who are hiring the illegal drivers, which is why we have so many more accidents. But it's like, so we start to realize all these things and you go, man, who's really coming to save you at the end of the day? And
nobody's coming.
God, it's coming. You and God and what you have to take care of your family.
For me, it's Team America.
Team America, your friends, your family, your community,
which you have to have neighbored up, which we do. We have we have SOPs on this. We have op orders. We have con ops. We do this all the time. And we're talking about how we have plans for when comms go down. I try and get most of my team leaders in different states to have sat phones, but not all the members can have them. So that's where Galileo can come in, because you can get the sat text when everything else is down. And there's also ham radio. A lot of there's redundancy and there's various levels, of comms. But
what I think people need to consider, like, boiling water and keeping warm and keeping your lights on and things like that. Because if there were, like, let's say China did, just initiate a small attack on a couple major cities, it wouldn't take much to knock out the power grid. And that's honestly where I would go first if I were the enemy, just to cause, power is everything. So if you can, and our substations, I don't know if anyone's noticed, but they're not guarded by anybody. There's like a chain link fence around the most important pieces of equipment to every city and town are just, they're not guarded. They're just open. The substations, the power that comes to your house is that giant silver shiny thing down the street with all the cords coming out of it. So it's like, unless citizens go and surround these areas, but even that, like, that power comes from somewhere else. And if that station were to get taken out, or, even California is dealing with rolling blackouts. There's so many things that happen very quickly and overnight. And we are so used to, I think we've had it so good that we as Americans are so used to just being able to pick up the phone and call someone and call the police and call 911 or call Uber Eats and call Amazon. And it's like, that's what goes away when all this happens. That's the first thing that goes away, is your ability to pick up the phone and call anybody, mom, dad, sister, brother, Amazon, Amazon, anybody. So, and then it's like, we're vulnerable. We're vulnerable as a country right now just because of everything that we've talked about. So, you really want to put in the hearts and minds of people that, though it seems like we're in that Trump's in and everything's cool, there's a lot of pots that are boiling on this stove right now that are uncontrollable. But you, as a leader of your household, have that control.
I'm so dismayed when I see people, bragging about Trump these days. And the other thing about sat phones we should mention too is that, that's secure. You're not going to be intercepted.
Right.
And of course, the FBI, intercepted at least 92 Republican groups, including Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA was targeted. And that came out in the 2020 election investigation.
Yeah.
So Watergate was really nothing because the president, resigned for that. Today, they barely even apologize, and they just keep going ahead with the surveillance and violating FISA, violating FATA. And so, SATCOM. Well, SATCOM's only for the military. So sat phones is the next best thing. Can't afford that. Galileo is the next best thing. And I think, and just as a teaser, Brett and I are talking about doing something special for Team America members for Galileo. And I got to get back on there. Please let me know about that. And
I will.
And kick me on that to get moving.
We got a lot. Yeah, we have a lot of great things coming with Galileo. We got a new emergency map feature with overlays, working with a very controlled AI to do some predictive planning.
Just think about that for a second, folks, because everybody does their maps off their phones or their cars or something. And when that goes down, you don't have maps unless you've got physical maps.
Right.
or if you have Galileo.
That's right. Yeah, because we can connect the satellite. You can take off-grid mapping that's coming down the pipe. Again, and I just we've moved everything onto our own dedicated servers. So I have multiple servers backed up, and all of the messages are private. We don't read your stuff. It's all secure. We can't read it even. And now we have a new social media platform where people can participate in some of the alert systems and then get rewards in our shopping cart, which we're setting up. So we're going to sell all this great gear from all of our great sponsors and affiliates at good discounts, cool discounts for everybody. And we're just we're doing what we can. Galileo was set up initially to work, connecting satellites to computers, really. And now that we have this app and we're building all these special features, we just want to offer as much information to people as possible, from anywhere you can get it. Yeah, and we love what Team America is doing. The way that you have it set up, similar to the military, where the information will go to one person to the next, and then they have their phone tree basically. Not everybody has to have a satellite device, though. I encourage everybody to have one, but you don't necessarily have to have one, as long as you have that team and that connection and that community where where your information's coming from.
Yeah, but you got to have a team.
Have a team.
It's 5 years in development. It was very frustrating originally because most of my guys are civilians, and you can't be a team leader if you don't have a team. And then you've got to run your team. You can't just try and do everything yourself.
Yeah.
But I got to say now, I'm very proud of them. They're very well organized. If you sat in on one of our headquarters meetings, it sounds like a military meeting.
Yeah.
It's very professional. People give really, the S2, the S3, the S1, the S6, S4, they very professional briefings. It's real impressive, but of course it's not open to the public.
Right.
And there's also, we have channels where people, we have a training channel, a logistics channel. And so that sounds like what you're going to be doing with Galileo as well.
Yeah, we're very like-minded, and we're doing things in the same direction, because that's where people who know, or people who are paying attention, or just in this industry, right? Like, I talk satellites and communication and backup grids and water filters and all this stuff all day long, and as do you talk about political, issues and wars and what's going on, and because you can see things and you can prepare people mentally, or even physically. We're saying similar things, we're working parallel to each other, because that's what people should be paying attention to. The brightest minds in the world are not starting wars. They're preparing their families to survive, with or without Walmart, because that is what's going to have to happen here soon. That's what's happened before, and history repeats itself. And as much as I love America, I cannot say with 100% confidence that it is going to look this way in 5 to 10 years. I think maybe even shorter than that. Something will change. Something will happen.
So that's Team America. Mission is to rescue the Republic. But how do you do that? Well, mission number one, I just redid a mission statement, is tactically to be a landmark for Americans who want American exceptionalism to gather around. So when Eagle Claw happened, and the Marines flying the C-47s sliced into the 130s, and that was the end of the Iran hostage rescue mission, Beckwith took a chem light, taped it to his walking staff, and made the talk in the desert there, and started to organize from there. So Team America is that chem light in the sand, in the chaos that can attract people. And then the second part, the long range strategic mission, is to raise kids and our kids, grandkids, that will infiltrate. We got to raise them, inspire them, and train them in godly ways, and then infiltrate these corrupt institutions, because CIA, FBI is not going away. So that's our other long-term mission, that we are. And then there's lots of other operations that we've done as well, especially under Pedo Joe. But comms is crucial to that, and interstate and even international comms are really crucial, especially if they cut comms. I don't think it'd be the Chinese that would cut comms. I think it would be the government to cut comms.
I mean, Obama started he passed what was the law that the news can lie to you, and then he also passed that, set up the emergency government internet just in case. So I mean, they've already been preparing for something where they have to take complete control of the internet for your safety once again.
I've done a lot of COOP. I've done a lot of continuity of operations for the DIA headquarters. I did it for the DEA New York headquarters. I've done it for private international companies. And SATCOM or sat phones is crucial to that.
I mean, they really are. And I know that the world is moving. You hear T-Mobile talking about satellites now and connecting. And we've always had that, right? Your phone has always had roaming. I mean, that's kind of what it is. It's just, it's roaming, but, you still need some towers with some of these cell phones. They're not, that's been the biggest problem is the hardware. The hardware has to connect, and the hardware for satellite communications is larger because it has to go much farther and it has to reach these devices. So, I'm glad that everyone is moving towards that. Although, again, I never want to put my trust in just one device, like one thing. I mean, if something happens to that one phone, then you're done, right? Don't you want to have a backup? Don't you have backup socks? Don't you have more money than you spend? Don't you have more gas? Don't you have a spare tire? Don't you have extra toothpaste and an extra dry towel, right? I mean, like, redundancy is such a part of all, I always say, I don't buy one egg at the grocery store. I buy 12 because I know I'm going to eat eggs again tomorrow. So it's like redundancy is always like it's a part of our lives.
Two is one and one is none is the old.
Two is one and one is none. Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah. So, that applies to communication. I would say, just as important as having a backup water filter, like something you can't live without is, go a day without talking, lose your phone for a day. I mean, that's your thing. If you can't get a hold of somebody, people lose their minds. And now imagine there's chaos and no power and you can't find your sister and you can't get a hold of mom or whatever. It's like, these phones are there for a reason. And we talk about them so much because they're very important for everyday citizens to have. But,
and again, if you can't afford the 89 a month or the 95 a month, then the Galileo.
We have Galileo, and we also have some great deals on bivy sticks, which we'll actually give you a bivy stick for free. That's a $250 device. It's this thing right here, and it'll allow your phone. Now you can use our app and you can text through the satellite network with this, and this is free. And then we have plans that are, they're as low as like $20 a month for, that's limited service. But again,
what's Galileo a month?
Yeah, Galileo. So normally it's 13, 14. Our prices are going to have to go up, but I'm going to bring, because we're adding all these new features and we have a lot of new tech that we're bringing on board. So we're going to go up a little bit, but I got a really great deal that I'm going to work with you and Team America on. I'm going to try to get it under $10 for you guys just because I like what you're doing and we're like-minded. But Satellite Phone Store will give you this bivy stick for free. You just give us a call, shoot us a text, and then, we got plans all over the board, and all those credits are rollover, so you never lose them.
And you can work that with an iPhone, too.
Absolutely, yeah. You just download the Galileo app, or Bivy has their own app, but we like the Galileo app, obviously, because that's my company, and, you get the messaging, the mapping, the tracking. If you want, you can actually share these IMEI numbers, which is basically like the device ID. You can share that with your family and friends, so you'll know exactly where they are off grid at all times. So as if your daughter has this in her glove box, right? You'll know where she is, or she can just get it out and shoot you a text. So, it's all about taking care of your family at the end of the day, or I think all family members want to take care of each other. So, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get all this great gear and this information like you're doing in people's hands and in their minds. So they're not surprised if something does go awry.
Well, before I let you go, one last, you're the perfect guy to ask about this. Is, I don't know if you've seen this American Mind story where they're talking about this Scott Yano's scrutinizing the single-sex education at VMI, and how I guess VMI was forced to open up to females, and of course of the service academy. Well, VMI, Virginia Military Institute, is not a service academy. It is a private military academy. So first of all,
Gotcha.
I don't like military academy officers. One of my guys is one from Annapolis. He doesn't like them. I've never been particularly impressed ring knockers. But
you don't like the West Point guys? You're not a West Point fan?
No, I'm not. I had to lock the heels of fellow West Pointers at Military Intelligence Officer Basic Camp. We were all second lieutenants, and they were, after 4 years of craziness, they were just go. No, I'm just a Rachi guy, but I'm not impressed with academy guys. But of the academies, VMI, I think, holds a prominence. Because it was all military, it was all male, and it was pretty hard ass. And so I guess they've had to open up to females finally, and they're trying to get Hegseth to issue something where the academies just go back to being male. And they're quoting an operational record echoes the U.S. Army Special Operations Command's Women in RSOF report revealed deep dissatisfaction among operators, with nearly 4 out of 5 saying the integration undermines effectiveness. And more conclusively, a 2015 Marine Corps study demonstrated that all male units outperformed mixed gender counterparts in speed, lethality, and cohesion. Now, Hegseth did not say that. He said, if you're a female and you can meet the standard, great. If you can't, you can't. That's what he said. But what they're saying here is going back to male units. And I agree. First of all, in special operations, for example, special mission units like Delta, there are females. I knew some of the originals. I trained some of the first ones, studettes, but they are not what is portrayed in that stupid show.
G.I. Jane.
The Lion. Oh, G.I. Jane is a travesty. The Lioness. That's a joke, but the Lioness show.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen that one.
Where these skinny, shiny black lady, Zoe Parker or Latina, I really like her as Uhura, but she's running around with these pipe hitters, and she's supposed to be more of a pipe hitter than the pipe hitters.
Right.
There are females in Spec Ops and special missions and intelligence. That's not their role. I've walked around. You pair up with a female because you can be out someplace.
They're the honeypots, right? Oh, I'm just kidding.
Well, no, they're
just kidding. Totally kidding. I'm totally kidding.
You're surveilling something out in the country someplace, especially in a foreign country. You know, it's easy to look. It's like in Ronin. You just look like you're making out, as opposed to 2 guys out there. That's probably against the law anyway in that country.
Yeah, I know. They'll throw you off a building.
So on a ship, what happens is they get pregnant.
Yep.
Then they gotta be airlifted. So the crew's down. They can't.
Lots of STDs going around the barracks at that point. We had some. We had a derogatory term for the females, but that was just commonplace. I didn't think it was derogatory at the time, but once you break it down, it certainly is. But yeah, I mean, they ran like the INI or whatever. They were part of the what is that? The part of the staff, whatever. But yeah, they had their share of the dudes, and then those dudes had their share of the sick calls, and it's like, it just doesn't go.
And that's going to happen with young folks, young fit folks. That's going to happen,
especially in high tense situations. And then add in jealousy. You're going to break up. You're going to break up a highly trained team because one guy's dating a girl, and then he likes her, and then it's like now you're all in high school again, because that happens, all the time. Yeah. But
all these movies now, and Lioness, they're all got this female. Usually it's a shiny black female. I wrote a Substack about that. That is suddenly they're the hardest of the pipe hitters.
Right.
And also they're all my daughter I was watching something. My daughter's and they're always yelling, and intelligence personnel. And she goes, is that the way it works? I'm like, no, you don't walk onto a military base and yell at everybody and say, I'm outrank you in civilian military ranks. I'm a GS-14, which is really outranking your 04 or whatever.
So yeah, I agree with you. So somebody explained to me that and I told this to a woman and they got offended. So I apologize in advance to any woman that gets offended by this. This was just a conversation that somebody had told to me. But they said that part of the problem with the election thing going on is that, and that was part of the reason that they wanted women to vote, is because they're more emotional. So you can approach a topic from an emotional perspective by showing some pictures or telling some sad stories. And then you get an emotional response. Whereas guys certainly have emotional moments. I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying all women are like this. Again, ladies, give me a break here. I'm just talking. But they said that men are more typically logical, where they might have an emotional response, but then it's like, all right, well, we got to get this done. Or this is the answer. And I just feel like, you talk to any veteran who's done any kind of hard pipe hitting, and you're gonna see a solitary tear, you're gonna get a moment of a throat clear, you're gonna see that it's still emotional for them, but the logic brain the logic brain has to move forward. My only concern is that women they're not designed for that. They're nurturers. I want a woman to be a nurturer. I don't necessarily want her kicking down doors, but I don't know. I think if they want to meet the standards, we tried this though. I thought they tried that with the Navy SEALs, and the woman got kicked out, and then there was a whole problem, and it was a big issue for
there was a couple who made Ranger School, and a couple who made the Q course, and then we didn't hear anything anymore.
Yeah,
interestingly enough.
It's funny enough, but
so
I just think maybe it's chauvinistic. I don't mean it to be, but I just think that there are some jobs that are more designed for men to do. And in the history of war, minus a Joan of Arc or something, that typically this type of job is best suited for a man.
That's obvious,
right?
Because
I'm not trying to be offensive to any women, but it just seems like
the basic macho standard is rucksacking.
Right.
And clearly women cannot ruck like guys can. You can't. I don't have my Green Beret statue, but it has a ruck on because that's the real deal, is rucking. It's not lifting. It's how far and how long can you ruck, really,
right?
And be miserable.
Miserable blisters, doing McCrees and McCrests, 25 miles, 15 miles, carrying 100 pounds or more.
But the real question here is, so I think it's the infantry and stuff, combat arms. I think should be all male. The academies, I don't think those have to be all male. Should there be an all male academy like a VMI again? Yeah, I think that's a good idea as well. But that's just my point of view on that. But I just want to get yours as well.
Yeah. Look, if they really want to do it and they can meet the standards and that's their thing, then, I guess give it a shot. But I just feel like as a society, we should be more clear right now on the roles of each gender, of each person, of each teacher. Be clear on the roles. Like teachers should teach math, not talk about emotions. Men should be the heads of household. Right? Things like this. Politicians should be public servants and be a little bit more honest. We have strayed so far from every role that every single person is doing. We've blurred the lines so much. This is just another example of we're just blurring the lines, but in the end, all you end up with is muddy brown. And I don't even mean I'm not talking race. If you take crayons and you take all the different colors and mix them together, you end up with just a big brown, black mix of unclarity. We have defined roles. The Bible has defined roles. Our country has defined roles. Other countries have defined roles very clearly, right? So I just think we should try to maintain that, because that's when the country was running at its best. I'm not saying perfect. I'm just saying it was running better when everybody had a clear role that they were taking part in, or
and you do
carrying
agree
out.
with me that all these movies and shows that show these females, leading the pipe hitters and knocking down guys, that's all fantasy. The
Yeah,
GI
of course.
Jane, GI
I
Jane,
mean,
the worst
G.I. Jane
movie
was
ever
a
made. That's the
yeah.
worst movie ever made.
Look,
Okay.
I'm sure there's some crazy MMA girl out there that could kick my butt. I'm sure that there's there's women that are faster than me. I get all that,
Oh yeah, yeah.
but the point is, yeah, I agree. Like because it's make believe. When you look at it and you go, someone who's actually served, and you go, well, that's not even real for a guy to do that, and then they have a woman doing it. It just adds more of a disgrace to her.
I remember in GI Jane when they were talking about, could you drag a buddy out, and then she's dragging, what's her name? I forget her name, but she's dragging Vigo. But if you look, she's not really dragging Vigo. Vigo's kind of walking along.
Demi Moore.
Moore, because she can't really drag Vigo.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just
it takes now 4 sailors, because of co-ed on ships. It's 4 sailors to get 1 sailor up, not 2.
And someone else said to me one time, they were like, and also men, we as men have a harder time seeing women get hurt than we do seeing our friends get hurt. Now, obviously, watching a friend. So,
what's so common when guys are dying on the battlefield is mommy.
Yeah, screaming out. Exactly. So it's like, now you have a team and everyone's like, so let's say they love G.I. Jane and she's awesome. And then she gets hurt. Now, how many guys are going to be distracted or more hurt because of that? I mean, it just seems you're adding emotions and you're adding additional layers of BS in a place you absolutely have no time, energy, or space for any additional BS because you're facing it when you're kicking through the door. So it's
Did you remember the old show, The Unit, which was based upon Sergeant Major Haney's book about Delta Force, inside Delta Force?
No,
it was a pretty good little show.
I'm gonna watch that. Okay,
like second or third generation season, they brought in a female, and that was kind of it. But it was pretty politically incorrect and pretty sharp there.
I love those. My favorite kind. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on, Brett. Been great to have you back. Galileo.com, right? And
Galileo.com, for all the information. It's satnews123.com. Or if you want the gear, the goodies, all the great stuff that we talked about earlier, go to sat123.com. That's a satellite phone store. We're happy to take your calls, chat with you, help you understand what the different equipment is, how you can implement it best with your family. And I appreciate you, sir. Everything you're doing. Keep up the great work, and God bless you, my friend. Take care.
Right back at you, brother.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
God bless. All right. Great to have Brett back. Good conversation. It's great to be able to talk to a fellow vet about all that stuff. And I think we covered a lot of territory. So remember, quiet wars need silent weapons that shoot crisis instead of bullets. Propelled by AI, not chemical reaction. Originating in data bits in place of gunpowder. From computers instead of guns. Fired by programmers instead of marksmen. Following bankers' orders instead of generals. Leaving no external physical wounds, but internal biological ones. CCP Professor Ping bragged China defeated the U.S. via a 2020 bio war. China's unrestricted war began undeclared decades ago, and year after year, Nazis, Maoists, and Marxists have attacked American minds, while Satanists have raped souls, and the cartels mauled emotions, cutting connections to God and family, destroying civilization, until the drugged up, dumbed down demoniacs gild their own cage and walk into their own abattoir. Freedom is never given. It is earned, fought for, won, and taken. So take it.